Has France's faltering frontrunner cleared the air, or will the steady drip of scandal continue? Conservative primary nominee François Fillon apologizing for misreading the nation's mood, but insisting he did nothing illegal or wrong when he put wife and children on his parliamentary payroll. Fillon played offense in a Monday press conference, chastising what he branded an unprecedented media witch hunt and insisting that with 75 days till the first round of the presidential election in this country, there is no plan B but him. Will his explanation fly? Newspaper Le Canard Enchaîné has since reported that Penelope Fillon earned 45,000 euros in severance pay when she was taken off his payroll, or the payroll of his replacement, back in 2013. In a year where insurgents could topple mainstream parties like Fillon's Les Républicains, just how wide open is the race? Ahead of Fillon in the polls now are the far-right's Marine Le Pen and the centrist former economy minister Emmanuel Macron, who's running as an independent. Never since General de Gaulle founded the Fifth Republic in 1958 have the major parties of government risked getting blown away and left out of the runoff. We'll ask why. What more surprises could we see? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at Fillon's fight back, and with us, Jacques Millard, Member of Parliament for the Les Républicains Party, an early supporter of François Fillon. Thank you for being with us.
I'm faithful.
Okay. Also with us, Lorraine Bounot, Executive Director for the advocacy group Transparency International France. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bruno Cotres of the French Political Science Institute research branch CEVIPOF, teaching this semester in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
And from Texas, Robert Zaretsky, who teaches French history at the University of Houston. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be here, Patrick.
The France 24 debate on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. It'll be a few days before the polls indicate if François Fillon really has hit the reset button and whether his explanation will indeed fly, that his wife and children really did actual work when they were on his parliamentary payroll, that it was all above board. But before he presses on with his campaign, he said on Monday that he's nonetheless sorry.
By working with my wife and my children, I favored these close collaborations that are today a source of suspicion. It was a mistake. I deeply regret it, and I present my apologies to the French people. Like many other MPs, I followed a tradition, legal of course, but one that clearly our compatriots no longer want.
Lorraine Bounot, excuse me. Do you accept that apology? What do you make of it?
Well, it's not really up to me to say whether I accept or not. It's the citizens who will be able to pronounce themselves whether they accept or not.
He said,
that
I didn't do anything that was illegal, but I misread what the public finds acceptable.
Well, that is true. There's a difference in the Fillon case. There's a difference between what is illegal and the practices that were the practices of many of our MPs at the time, and that are still the practices of many of our MPs right now, actually. So what would be illegal and what is currently in the hands of the justice system and under investigation is the potential abuses of public funding, and that is in the hand of the justice.
To find out whether or not there were fake jobs.
Exactly. So that is one thing that is currently under investigation. The other thing is more linked to cultural practices, and something that is shocking to citizens right now is discovering that actually in France you can legally have as collaborators your members of your own family, and that is what is shocking to citizens, and that was the explanation that François Fillon was giving.
Jacques Millard, what's been the feedback from your constituents?
Well, surprisingly good, I'm sorry to say, because I heard Lorraine, but I don't agree with her, because I can tell you frankly, this is not a question to be judged by judges. It's a question judged by the MP, the way we work, because you have to have confidence. And I'm not shocked by somebody who is employing his wife or husband, because we have both cases. And I think this is a big
in that case, what do you think of François Fillon's apology, saying, I'm sorry
this is
that
why,
I misread the
because
move?
he was shocked by the attack, and he was destabilized, you know. He was very shocked by the attack, and he said it this morning again. But I can tell you one thing, that what I've heard on the ground from yesterday on is rather good. And I think that the media bowling game, you know, which has been very exploding now, is now serving him. And I think this is a big mistake. This election will not be made by the medias. It won't be done by, you know, this bowling game which is engaged. And the worst is now coming down the other way. So I do believe that, in fact, we are reaching a point where the voters will choose, and they will be surprised.
All right, a lot of questions on this. One, I saw one remark, because this has been going for 2 weeks now. He comes out with this explanation on Monday.
Because he was this is true, he was caught by the you know, this kind of
But he did go on television to justify himself previously,
because he did not realize, you know, he's a human being as well.
Yeah.
He's not only a hard hard politician, he's somebody that he was very surprised by this kind of attacks, because this is a practice which is legal in France. If you take the chairman of the National Assembly, he's employing his wife. You see, I never employ my wife, because I would have been too many wives or too many
she's
women.
Been seen doing actual work there, whereas
who knows,
Penelope Fillon has not been seen doing work.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Who knows that, in fact, Penelopegate has not worked? It's very difficult to prove the contrary, because when you work with an MP, a politician, it's a daily approach.
So, Jacques Miel, let me ask you, because we saw one comment saying in Britain, when there's a political scandal, there's usually sex involved. In France, when there's a political scandal, there's usually money involved.
Where we don't.
But here's the question for you, and that is that the latest revelation coming out in the Canal Enchaîné is 45,000 euros in severance
it's
pay.
Included in the amount. It's included in the amount which has been said before.
Which
so
I
this
agree
is
with
pure
you,
rubbish.
may be completely legal,
It's
but will it nonetheless be
absolutely rubbish.
shocking? Is the question?
No. This is the way. You know, in fact, we have we are facing a genuine conspiracy. How is it that all this item came up? It can only come from someone in the Ministry of Finance. And this is very funny that it came now.
Only someone in the Ministry of Finance, not
only
within
one.
his own camp.
No, because they can't have all those, explanation.
Bruno Cotres, your thoughts on this? Is there a conspiracy by the outgoing socialist government?
Oh, I don't think it's the big point. Why not? I just don't know. You never know in these kind of cases. What I would like to say are 2 or 3 things. So eventually, why not work with your wife and things like that? But there is a big problem anyway, because it's public money. I can tell you that I am a civil servant in France, and if I was explaining tomorrow to Sciences Po that we need to contract with my brother, I will be in problems. So this is a very, very big point, which is that normally to guarantee to the taxpayer that the public money is well used, normally there is something that we call conflict of interest. And it is a big issue. I know that it could be legal, and it's not because it is legal that it is possible to do so. There is a second point in that case of François Fillon, which is it's mainly the question of the gap between the political platform of François Fillon, the diagnostic that François Fillon put on France, and that situation, because what François Fillon said some years ago, I am at the head of a state which is nearly bankrupt. Can you do so? Can you say so? And at the same time, that you deliver such a salary to your wife and to your kids. I just want to finish on that point. The salary that we are talking about, it is much more than a researcher, a university professor, a teacher, a civil servant, the best category in France. If you work for the French CNRS, which is my case, you begin your career with a salary which is not even 2,000 euro a month. How is it possible?
One reaction on the hashtag F24 debate. Yes, Fillon can still win. The French are more resilient to scandal than many other cultures. That reaction coming on Facebook from Maria. Robert Zaretsky, what's your view on this? Because this has now been playing out for 2 weeks again.
Right. And the American view is one of puzzlement. as you know, nepotism is against the law in the United States, and we've seen the various ways in which the Trump administration has been attempting to push the envelope on that matter, so far successfully, unfortunately. In the case of François Fillon, I would simply echo the point made by Bruno Cotres, namely that, yes, it was legal in France, it remains legal, that may need to change, but legality is not the same thing as ethics. And there is this staggering difference between what Penelope Fillon was earning compared to what most French earn. And so far, all that François Fillon has been able to say in her case is that she set his calendar and that she went through his mail. And when I mention this to friends here in Houston, their response is almost always, nice work if you can get it. One other point that I would make is that François Fillon had his epiphany at the very same moment that this wasn't quite right, at least the optics weren't right, at the very same moment that the National Assembly was passing that first law on transparency. And he realized that this simply was not going to go down well. So I think that there were practical matters, I don't want to call them Machiavellian, that led Fillon to quit having his wife paid this kingly salary as his parliamentary assistant.
Laurent, Bruno, let me ask you about this, because there were other matters. There was one that wasn't even brought up in the press conference, which is her salary from a publishing house, where she earned vast sums of money, and we're not quite sure for doing what at this particular point yet. There's his consultancy, of which he's still the head, even though he's a candidate for president. Yet that hasn't gotten much play in the French press. What has gotten play is the amount of money Penelope Fillon earned.
Well, the amount of money, but also the lack of transparency around all of this, and I think that is one of the main points of all this debate that has been raised in the public media, and that is shocking to citizens. Is that how is it that we cannot have any information whatsoever on how MPs use the public funding that they have, on who they employ, on who they work for? How is it possible? How is it legal that they can actually do lobbying, so meaning being consultants, for example, so do lobbying while they are being elected official? How is it that all of this is legal and that there's a total opacity around that? So that is the main issue, and I would actually disagree with the comment that has been made on French people being resilient about scandals. I think that the Cahuzac scandal that happened.
The crusading budget minister who was caught for tax evasion.
Exactly. A couple of years, in 2013, proved that actually there is no such thing as resilience. Right after following this scandal, some major laws have been adopted, and some of them that Robert was mentioning, the big transparency law that was adopted in 2013, and that actually made France on the positive track, let's say, on a better track, at least to give some more control and some more transparency on all of these issues. So we're on the right track, but we have to adapt now practices to this change of culture that we can see, and make sure that we make sure that we bridge the gap between what citizens, their expectations, what they expect from their MPs and elected officials, and what the actual practices are.
Would you agree with that, Jacques Mial, that the Cahuzac case was a watershed moment for French politics?
Cahuzac lied in the House very bluntly. First of all, I would like to answer our friends on the, I don't know where he was. The question that he said is, she's been overpaid compared to my salary as a professor. The amount of money which has been published by Le Canard is with taxes. And in fact, if you look at the genuine wage, genuine monthly, it's 2,300. So you see, you have to be very careful because
So the difference between the gross and the net.
the amount of money is not the netto,
Which is
it's the gross.
still bigger.
Sorry,
Which is
I
still
go
bigger
ahead. I'm
than
sorry. You can read. You can read if you want the Mediapart very clear article which has been published by Mediapart on this issue, and so you compare what is compared. I agree with you that you are badly paid. I can tell you the truth. You are badly paid. This is true. Then I am going to ask you one question because you speak a lot of transparency. May I ask you who finances you? Soros? Who finances you? Because transparency is good for the others, but not for yourself. So I can tell you, I accuse you to really play transparency, but you are not very transparent. I'm sorry to say.
So I'm very sorry that you haven't been on our website where actually we're very
nothing is clear on your
about
website.
all our
I'm
budgets
very sorry,
and
you
all
are
of
not
the money
transparent there, and you play transparency just for your, let's say, trade. That's all.
All right, we'll pick up on these points when we come back, and the issue of just how much France is changing when it comes to transparency. You're watching the France 24 debate.
French Connections, presented by Florence Villeminot.
They're known for their cuisine and saying hello with a kiss. They only work 35 hours per week, when they're not on strike, that is. How true are these clichés about France? Every week, Florence Villeminot tears apart stereotypes. Join us for insight into French culture and current events to understand what makes the French so unique.
French Connections on France 24 and France24.com.